Thanks, Karen. So hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today's webinar. My name is Mark Gatos. I'm Chief Marketing Officer here at Inlight Software, and we really appreciate the time you're going to be spending with us. We're actually very excited today to have we literally have hundreds of customers at Inlight, but we're really happy to have First American joining us. Specifically, we have Ricardo Vega is joining us and participating in this webinar. Before I introduce Ricardo, I just want to emphasize, if you have any questions during the webinar, please submit them into chat. We'll try to get to all the questions during the presentation. We tend to keep a pretty tight webinar. We try to go pretty quickly. We usually try to keep them less than 30 minutes because most people don't want to watch, a 1-hour webinar. So we try and keep them pretty tight. We try to move pretty fast. We try to get to all the questions, but we may not. But we assure you, if you ask a question, we will absolutely get back to you and make sure that question gets answered. So again, we're pretty excited to have Ricardo Vega join us today. Ricardo is a critical facilities engineer for First American. Ricardo works for Cushman & Wakefield, supporting First American in their critical facilities data center. He has over 23 years of experience in IT and critical environments within data centers. His role at First American is to support the data center daily operations, including the maintenance of all the HVAC and critical power systems at First American. So welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for participating. Again, to everybody out there, if you have any questions, please let us know. And so we'll sort of jump into the presentation. We're going to try and keep this relatively conversational. So let's first sort of talk about what we're going to be covering. So Inlight Software has a variety of solutions. We have solutions for co-location providers. We have a hyperscale edition, but our sort of flagship solution is called Inlight Platinum Edition, and it really consists of two main applications. There's Inlight Enterprise Edition, which is really for managing assets, capacity planning around assets, dealing with workflow, dealing with cabling, everything to do with the physical assets. And then we have a product which we're going to be focusing on today called Inlight Energy Optimizer, which we affectionately call NEO, referring back to the matrix, right? So NEO is actually a solution which we've improved, but was originally based on a company we acquired last February in 2016, a company called FieldView Solutions. And now that product we've taken, we've bolstered and improved it, and it's now Inlight Energy Optimizer. And NEO really is designed to aggregate disparate facility and IT systems information at extreme scale. And so from a single instance of NEO, you can capture sub-minute real-time polling from macular to granular information. But the key to NEO is it can capture all this information from disparate information sources and then normalize that information. And so the key is taking that information, normalizing it, and then enabling you to gain insight and access to that information. And so NEO provides unmatched monitoring for branch circuit monitoring, alert monitoring, and monitoring your environmentals. And it supplies real-time data and reports that gets used by facilities, IT operations, and C-suites, and ultimately produces meaningful, actionable reports and alerts and business intelligence so you can make business decisions around. And it helps optimize energy, space, cooling, and IT operations. And one of the things that's specific to Inlight compared to some of the other decent providers out there is we are vendor and hardware agnostic. We will take anybody's information from whatever hardware and capture it, normalize it, and then allow you to make decisions based on either that real-time or trend information. And NEO has this modern web-based architecture, highly scalable. There are no appliances, there's no client software. And as we say, we have no hardware agenda. We're a software company, and that's what we do. Some of the other providers out there want to push their hardware and typically support their hardware better than others. We don't have that. It's all hardware vendors are equal for us. And ultimately, the solution is very open. You can integrate it with any BMS or EPMS or an ITSM system We have pre-built connectors to ServiceNow, BMC, HP, CA, and we have open APIs that allow you to even extract the information into your own homegrown system. So today we're going to be honing down on NEO and the world of Enlight Energy Optimizer. And again, we're going to start talking to First American here pretty quick. And so, Ricardo, would you like to sort of introduce who First American is?
Sure, thank you. So yeah, First American, does many services and has quite a few locations throughout the world, actually. But the data center that I'm out of is based out of Santa Ana, and that pretty much is the home for First American. What First American does is they do title and insurance, mortgage lenders, real estate, home warranty, trust services, and a lot of international business as well. And everything, all the different owners or departments have their information in Santa Ana. So with that, this data center is something that First American is very proud of, and they put a lot of effort and emphasis into it. And being, the company of this size, the First American is, with 20,000 employees in 40 plus countries, they really want to make sure that they have all bases covered, from, and NEO plays a big role in that for what we do in the day-to-day operations of at First American.
Okay, great. Thanks for the introduction. And yes, as everyone can see, the basic statistics for the company are the bottom. And so, again, we're going to be focusing on NEO. So let's sort of drop down a level and sort of talk about the 5 use cases we're going to cover for First American. Now, you can go to the Enlight website, and there are a variety of different use cases folks use us for, from managing workflow to compliance regulation to a variety of different ways. But here are sort of the main 5 use cases from a NEO perspective that First American focuses on, which is energy capacity planning, power failure simulation and prevention, branch circuit monitoring, energy optimization and cost reduction, and improved labor savings. We're going to drill into each of these, and then we'll talk to Ricardo about how important that is for First American and how they sort of view it. So let's sort of drop into the first one, which is energy capacity planning. So when you use NEO, it helps you really track and view both real-time power information and also trending over time. You want both because you want to see immediate issues that are occurring, but you also want to see trends that potentially arrive, right? And ultimately, you want to ensure power and cooling are operated at the highest efficiency. And so with NEO, you're getting detailed power system view of what your power load is by kilowatt to make sure you're not exceeding the max load anywhere, and you're obtaining real-time up-to-the-minute information on statistics like PUE and data center infrastructure efficiency calculations, right? And you can track operational performance, energy efficiency from individual circuits throughout the entire enterprise. And as a result, this allows you to plan your future energy needs more accurately because you know exactly what's going on. It's not theoretical. At any moment, you can see exactly what's transpiring, and you can see what the trends are. You can see what the spikes are, what's the greatest amount of power usage over any given period of time. And a lot of this is about reducing the time it takes for people to do capacity planning. So back to you, Sir Ricardo, like how important is energy capacity planning for you folks? What are you doing sort of on this front with NEO?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So yeah, with the use of NEO at First American, it basically being that the data center is so diversified, it kind of allows us to look at which RDC, which STS, which leg of power are we using the most, and how we can distribute that power a little more evenly? And also, how do we distribute the equipment, for our cooling to be optimized correctly, so we're not using more cooling in one area over another, and the same thing with the circuits, how we're not overloading one power feed over another, and how we can actually make sure that if we do lose one leg of power, then we still have redundancy on another. So NEO kind of helps us with that, to look at virtually, so we don't have to physically look at it, and it allows us to capture all that information in one location. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, great. Hey, thanks, Ricardo. So let's move to sort of the second sort of use case, which is power failure simulation and prevention. Say that 3 times fast. So one of the things is, once you begin to gather sort of this real-time and trend information, you start seeing potential failure points, right? You can identify weaknesses and really understand the potential impact of device failures. And you're really getting end-to-end visibility across your entire power chain. And you also get, as a nice perk, you start identifying unused power infrastructure, and you can also start to better ensure redundancy and really increase the uptime. And one of the unique capabilities of NEO is this ability to do what we call power failure simulation. So with software, you can go in and, in just simulation, not in actuality, you can go and simulate a power failure of a particular component and see what the ramifications are to systems dependent on that, or systems that are related to it, and see if you're causing power failures beyond just what you were expecting. See if there's a cascading effect. So you can do this all with software rather than do it with your live systems. You can actually go in with the software and simulate a power failure and see what the impact would be. And so, in terms of power failure prevention, Ricardo, how does First American use NEO sort of in the prevention area, right, to sort of see what issues might potentially arise? Any sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah. So just like every data center that's out there, they diversify power and things like that. I mean, and everything's a little unique to everyone. As far as for us and First American, we actually have 4 different power feeds coming in, and what that does, it creates a complicated situation where we have four generators, we have 4 UPSs, we have 4 switch gears. They're all dedicated, and that's nice. That creates a good sense of security, but at the same time, as you go upstream, can create a problem when you start to diversify power, making sure that we get everything, each critical piece of equipment to the right, circuit. So if something were to happen, we could still operate that server, that switch, that critical equipment. So what's nice is being able to simulate a failure, power failure. We could see what we're affecting before it actually does happen. We hope that it never does, but if it were to happen, we can then look at it and be like, okay, well, here's a problem. We would lose the whole, one whole cabinet or whatever the scenario might be. And it allows us to see upstream, downstream of our equipment to be able to mitigate any scenarios that we don't foresee. Thanks, Mark. Okay.
That's great. So the sort of third use case we wanted to discuss is branch circuit monitoring, which really, one of the nice things about NEO is it enables macro level monitoring and tracking of energy usage by measuring real-time circuit breaker utilization, while of course being able to monitor down to the individual PDU panels. And NEO uses some pretty sophisticated algorithms to calculate specific system utilization metrics, such as PUE, as I mentioned before. And NEO has actually built into it some unique teaming capabilities for real-time loads across the A and B sides of the electrical equation that are feeding your entire data center floor gears. So again, these sort of teaming capabilities are very specific to the NEO product. And ultimately, you want to ensure redundancy, and we do so while reducing the built-in overhead. So a lot of times people build in additional loads, but we ensure redundancy while reducing the overheads that people usually build in to minimize failures. So again, this improves energy efficiency and capacity planning, and it makes it very easy to calculate carbon emissions, and it eases phase and load balancing and provides building operators up-to-date panel schedules, as you can see, eliminating the guesswork in the data center. So again, back to you, Ricardo. So how does branch circuit monitoring sort of play at First American?
Well, it's very important to us because, you know, being, like I said, the critical facility, we don't want to overload our circuits. We want to be able to keep the redundancy capability of it for every piece of equipment that's there. There's not one that's less important than another. And as we start to add or change or do any significant work, we want to make sure, you know, where our power consumption is highest, you know, at the cabinet level, you know, to diversify the equipment, and it just basically, you know, allows us to see where, you know, where we're consuming a lot more and what devices are using, you know, more energy and requiring us to keep an eye on each circuit. I mean, it's a tool that's very useful as we grow and as we add more equipment. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Ricardo. So the next use case, I think, is near and dear to any facility or data center person's heart, which is the world of energy optimization and cost reduction. And NEO provides real-time information to immediately identify if you have any inefficient use of racks or space or power or cooling, because we monitor all of that. And a lot of times when customers begin to use NEO, they unlock capacity not being utilized and really getting the most out of their existing assets, right? And they get performance management and analytics to optimize really the efficiency of every single component within the facility. And NEO also enables you to identify and eliminate inefficient use of the resources that will ultimately drive down your costs. So if you have inefficient usage of power, it can help you identify that and really reduce the cost. And once you begin to accurately identify locations of energy wastage and remove them, you also reduce costs while also hardening your power chain, right? So you identify sort of these inefficient places where you can not only save, but in the same process, you actually harden your power chain. And one of the nice things, once you get full transparency of what's going on in your data center, you can begin to raise the temperature within the data center. A lot of us have certainly walked into data centers which felt like meat lockers, but the trend now is to try and raise that temperature so you can lower the cost. Well, you can't do that if you don't have visibility and transparency. And so with NEO, you can see from a heat map perspective if you have any hotspots, and you can begin to raise the temperature and thus reduce your cooling costs. And if a given area starts to pop up as a hotspot, you can also consider moving or distributing those workloads to, again, allow you to continue to raise the temperature within your data center and reduce costs. And one of the things is we found with some organizations, by more efficiently managing your power, you can sometimes actually postpone or completely eliminate a new data center investment, right? You were thinking, oh, we're running out of power, we've got to go to a new facility, and you find out, no, we don't need to do that. because we can get more out of the resources we have today. And so, Ricardo, I would imagine as a financial institution, First American's concerned about costs. Why don't you talk a little bit about energy optimization and cost reduction at First American?
Sure thing. I think that's the question that always comes up is, how do we, mitigate our costs, and can we reduce costs? Can we lower the temperature? Can we do, and it's easy to walk into a facility and be like, let's just lower the temperature. I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of factors that come into a data center, hot aisle, cold aisle, how much equipment is there. So the efficiency, kind of gets lost a lot. And the nice part with being able to see how much equipment is in each rack and what the load capacity is, we can dial down our HVAC electrical cost as well if we're able to turn down the cooling or raise the temperature if we can. Obviously, I mean, ideally, hot aisle, cold aisle containment is ideal, but it's not feasible in all areas. So with that, I mean, we can using NEO, we can look at where our hotspots are or could be, where our issues might come up, and then at the same time, how we can, raise the temperature a little. I mean, raising it 1 or 2 degrees does change a lot, not only for the cooling of the data center, but also for energy costs. So we're looking at, we like to use a heat map a lot, and seeing how that correlates to our power consumption, and at the same time, we can distribute the equipment a little more evenly to make sure we're using, our raised floor cooling and to 100%, and not be losing energy to an empty cabinet or an empty row. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Ricardo. So the last sort of use case why folks turn to NEO is ultimately to improve labor savings, right? To help people do their jobs more efficiently, right? And so once you deploy NEO, it really helps reduce the time it takes for facilities and IT personnel to really perform any task related to power, rather than having to walk down on a data center floor and ask it to see what's going on. You can actually use the software. You can also automate certain routine functions so personnel can focus sort of on higher level tasks. And really, when it comes to placing new assets, by using NEO, you're really enabling IT and facilities teams to place those assets without having to perform manual checks. They can look at the software, see where things can be placed, and do so. And you're really eliminating the guesswork surrounding what available resources are there. You know exactly, because NEO is going to tell you. And by doing so, you're reducing personnel costs to maintain the data center. You're getting better insight into what your actual operating costs are, and you could potentially charge back different groups based on how much energy they're using and so forth. And really, dashboards eliminate the need to send people down to the data center just to gather basic information and specific asset information. And it isn't just data center personnel. Once you have a centralized set of information, it isn't just data center and facilities. Anyone who's dependent on that information can access it more efficiently, whether that's compliance people, risk assessment teams, accounting. Anybody who needs the information, you can set up reports and dashboards that are specific to the information they need, and then they can self-service. You don't have to have somebody go and generate this on their own and then go pass it to those organizations. It really reduces the time. Anyone who has to get that information reduces the time it takes for them. But again, back to you, Ricardo. So has NEO really helped sort of make this more First American more efficient, and have you gotten some labor savings?
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, as far as the use of it, I mean, I'm pretty much the one in charge of making sure all new circuits are added and old ones are removed, and it basically makes the job easier for my coworkers to, log into the dashboard, and if there's an issue, they could, look at to see what's going on. And it does save the time to run upstairs and put the system on test and go under the floor, and it's time. It's time that's spent doing that. Instead, we're accurately looking at the whole data center in one screen, and if there is an issue, we could see it. If there isn't, then we move on to the next the next thing that could be causing an issue, or if we need to add a new circuit, do we have the room? We don't need to physically go and look every single time. It's there right in front of us in the dashboard.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mark.
Sure. Thank you, Ricardo. So the key takeaways, and then we'll get to the questions. Again, if you have any questions, we've had a few come in here, and if you want to submit a question, please do so. This is the last sort of summary slide. Really, the key takeaways for NEO are, it really helps reduce downtime. When you use software and begin to get transparency and visibility and the ability to do power failure simulation, you're really hardening your power chains. You're getting your arms around what are the impacts of changes, what's actually going on, what do the trends say, and you really reduce downtime. You improve your capacity utilization when you see what the actual workloads are from a power and a cooling perspective, and you see what is actually happening on the data center floor, and you can plan more effectively because you know exactly what's transpiring, both, as I said, from a real-time and trend perspective. You're reducing your energy costs when you get your arms around it, see where you potentially could be raising the temperature, or perhaps areas where you've got high energy utilization where perhaps you can spread the load. As we mentioned just a second ago, you improve the operational efficiency of your organization because they have software to help make them more efficient, more effective, more knowledgeable about the decisions they're making on a day-to-day basis. And lastly, and we really didn't hit on this too much, you're improving the collaboration around anyone who touches power or anyone who touches cooling. Really, you're allowing people to collaborate around the changes and planning, migrations, consolidations, all because you have a better, your arms around your power and cooling usage. So again, these are sort of the key takeaways. And so as I said, we've had a few questions come in here. So let me sort of, the first one is actually a question I had created for you, Ricardo, which is, what advice would you give to those who are looking at a monitoring and alarming solution like NEO? What would be sort of your high level, here's what I would tell you if you were going to evaluate one of these?
Well, I mean, first of all, I mean, I guess if you're coming in to try to get some sort of monitoring to look at, I mean, NEO is something that kind of gives you a lot in one, I would say. I mean, if what I like best to play around with is the power failure simulations. It gives you a good practice to look at in case of that situation that will arise, that we hope never happens, that we always prepare for. And I think that's crucial because the whole, not only as an individual like myself, but the whole team can, we could discuss, we can look at things, we can prepare, we could plan, and not try to wing it when something does happen. And for what it could do, it's pretty powerful compared to others that I have looked at. Whether the nice part is it's a dashboard on your laptop where I'm sitting, not a dedicated computer where I have to go look, or I'm just getting alarms and I have to go somewhere else. It's where I'm at, it's what I'm doing. In this world of multiple screens, I could have that up looking at it while I'm analyzing something else that'll correlate. So I it's helped us a lot. And
so a
highly,
question, Ricardo, a question just came in. How often do you look at the dashboards?
I pretty much have it open all day. Obviously, I look at it as soon as I come in, and I know that the other team looks at it as soon as we come in, because it does provide alarming. It does provide, you know, warnings for us to kind of see, hey, what's going on. So I mean, I would say it, for me, it's on the whole time. It lets me know if something happens. So I'd say probably like 4 or 5 times in my shift, I'm kind of sneaking a peek at it and seeing if anything I missed.
Okay, and we have a question from Peter, which is, what is the pricing of NEO? We price, all of our pricing is based on sort of value anytime we price a solution at Enlight. And so we felt with Enlight Energy Optimizer, the best way to price it was by the number of devices, the number of points being monitored. So it's done on a per point basis, which is really for the number of items being monitored. And then we're running out of time. We're actually over a little bit, so we'll take this. We've got a variety of questions we haven't gotten to, but we'll take this last one, which is, Ricardo, it's from Sally. How many people use the system approximately? Who is the information shared with?
So on a daily basis, there's about 4 to 5 of us in our group that look at it, and then at that point, we share information with First American management. You know, when we have our weekly updates on meetings and stuff, but on a daily basis, it's 4 to 5 of us that continually are monitoring, and I'm the one that's adding and, you know, making changes and letting the team know what was done.
And what type of information do you share with the management? I was just sort of curious. Do they just want to sort of know everything's okay or uptime?
Well,
I'm just very curious.
Yeah, well, they want to primarily know, you know, how our load is doing, so we incorporate, you know, NEO with, you know, how the whole infrastructure is doing, and how are we able to, obviously, are we doing good on cost? Is there obviously more that we could do? Are we using all the white space? You know, and then they update us on, you know, what's coming out, what's coming in. You know, there's, you know, it's a moving. The data center is always moving in some way, one way, shape, or form. So with this information that we provide to them, it allows them to future plan expansion or removing.
Okay, great. Well, as I said, we didn't get to all the questions. We will get back to everyone. All the questions that we had, we will get back to you individually. Again, we've kind of gone over by about 5 minutes. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Ricardo, for your time. We appreciate it. You can hear all the silent applauding in cyberspace for attending. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everyone who was on the webinar for attending, and we'll see you on our next webinar. Take care.